Hi and welcome. I'm Lisa Lightner. This is another episode of Don't IEP Alone. and, you know, sorry for those of you who are watching this rather than listening to it on a device. I I swear I have a really cute haircut. But on screen, like I feel like I look like a mushroom head. Ugh. Anyway, enough about me because you can't see me. Wanted to dig in today to about a topic that hopefully I won't ramble too much, but came up the other day on the Facebook page. And so I wanted to bring it up again because I felt it's worthy of its own discussion. As you know, IDEA was passed in 1975. I live in Pennsylvania, so we actually were first. Ours came as a result of a 1971 court case that was called Park versus PARC. And then it was known as the Park Decree, which is a federal decree that told the state of Pennsylvania, well, this is what you have to do. And that Park Decree actually became the foundation for IDEA. And much of what became IDEA, again, was this Park Decree. And it was like, hey, this is what they're doing in Pennsylvania, and let's do it nationally. And it passed. I only just say that. I don't even know why I just told you that. Oh, I know why. um, because I'm a history nerd. I love history and trivia and details. But that prior to 1975 or 1972 in Pennsylvania, because I know how you folks are sometimes, and if you know these facts too, people email me and they go, you said 75, but you live in Pennsylvania and it was 1972. I feel like I'm always like preemptively thinking of all that. Yeah, but that you all hit me with on email and social media comments and DMs. Anyway, prior to 1972 or 75, it was completely legal for the public schools to turn away our kids, right? It's perfectly legal for them to say, oh, you can't come here, which is crazy now that we think about it. But it happened all the time. My point being that public schools are still the only place where our kids are welcome and guaranteed an education. Private schools are not required legally to provide special education. Although, yes, I know some of them do, and some of them do it pretty well. But providing special education and being entitled to FAPE are not the same thing. If your private school tells you, oh, we provide this, 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 and this, and you think, oh, well, that sounds great, you have no recourse if it doesn't work out. So, yeah, a lot of places can provide special education. That doesn't mean you have that same entitlement to FAPE. Again, you have no recourse if it doesn't work out. So basically, public schools are the only entities required to provide FAPE, free and appropriate education. I am well aware, as an advocate for 15 years, I am well aware that it's not happening. It is not happening. A lot of kids are not receiving FAPE because there has been a movement underway to financially starve our public schools into failure. And this has been done on purpose to make the case for privatization, to funnel public money into private interests. How can you say that? You're so political. Like, yeah, you know why? Because IDEA was written by politicians and school funding was decided by politicians, and ADA was written by politicians, and Section 504 was written by politicians. Everything our kids do is political. And also, this is not something that Republicans are denying, right? They're very open about this. So That's fine if you want to be a denier, but they're not denying it, so I'm not sure why you are. It is a political issue. It is one that has been getting more buzz lately because there has been statements made that there's going to be a national voucher program. I am against vouchers for many reasons. What a voucher is, for those of you who don't know, is your state will come up with a dollar figure and they will tell you that you're going to get a voucher for that amount of money. Some places, some states, it's the states that have these voucher programs. Some it's 2,500, sometimes it's 5,000, sometimes it's 10,000. And so then you can take that voucher and go enroll in a private school. And then again, you'll get a refund for that amount of money toward the private school tuition. Here's why I'm against vouchers, for a lot of reasons, and I'll try to keep this brief because I know I can talk about this all day long. First of all, is that most parents who want to use a voucher, and I mean, it sounds like a great idea, right? Like, oh my gosh, I want to go to private school. So yeah, why wouldn't I be against vouchers? Or why would why would I be against this? I want to use this money for. So here's the thing. First of all, we know statistically that the places that have voucher programs, in most cases, fewer than 10% of the vouchers are creating new private school enrollments. So essentially 90% of the people who are receiving these refunds, they had already made the decision to choose private school anyway. They were already doing this. The voucher or the money that they get back is just a bonus. And okay, what's wrong with that? It's taxpayer money, right? But we're talking about basically people who are wealthy just getting more refunds. And the reason that we know that this is mostly wealthy people is because vouchers are not designed to help those of us who are marginalized, disabled, poor, minority, people of color. Because here's the thing. Around here, like a private school, there are some private schools around here that are $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. So a $10,000 voucher, it's a nice little bonus for someone who can already afford a $70,000 a year tuition. Most parents cannot make up the gap. So it's not like it's just useless to you, right? Like, okay, that's great that I would get that. The other piece is that you still, in most cases, have to have the money up front anyway. You have to pay the tuition and then you get this as a refund, as a tax refund. So even if, let's say, your state gives one of these higher value vouchers, which is $10,000, and let's say you can afford, like that covers the tuition, you still have to have that cash up front to pay the tuition and then just deduct that amount from your taxes, if that makes sense. And a lot of families, we know this. We know that Americans are by and large cash poor and don't have this cash on hand to spend. The other thing is that there's, of course, I'm an IEP advocate. Private schools don't have to take disabled kids. Even if they do, they're not entitled to FAPE, but most of them don't, because we know that, let's call it what it is. Special education is more expensive to provide. So why would you, if you're a business owner, like running a private school, why would you increase your costs if you didn't legally have to? They don't. So most of us who have kids with IEPs, our kids are not welcome to use these vouchers. Now, I do understand that Florida, Ohio, other states have these voucher programs that are just to be used for like autism schools, all special needs schools, and so on. In most cases, you waive FAPE to accept those. Some states have huge wait lists for the vouchers. So they say like, okay, we have this voucher program, but only like 50,000 students a year can use it. Okay. I live in a state with, I forget, 12 million people, 13 million people. So not everyone can use it. The other thing is that there are, and I don't even know why some of these red states are agreeing to this and why they're so pro voucher, because if you look at the rural parts of our country, many rural parts of our country, they don't even have a private school. Something like, I looked at Idaho and Iowa, and we're talking about more than 50% of the counties in those states do not even have a private school. They only have public schools. So, okay, so you can't use it, right? Like if your state has a voucher program, you have nowhere to go because you don't even have private schools where you live because it's more rural. So that's an issue. It's not for everybody. This is really just a way, again, to get taxpayer money back into the hands of already wealthy people. And the other thing is this, is that when parents argue for this, it's this, well, it's my tax dollars. Why don't I get to choose what school my kid goes to? And this is the point I'm getting to that came up on Facebook the other day, is that public education is not a customer service model. Okay. And when it comes to public education, we are not the customer as individual families. We are not the customer. The customer of public education is society, is the public. The whole point of public education is for the betterment of society. Now, arguably, the betterment of society would mean educating all kids, providing FAPE, spending the dollars in public education so that we don't spend the dollars later to support disabled adults who are not, can't find meaningful employment. Of course, half of our prison population is functionally illiterate and so on. That's not happening. But we are not the customer. So it's not a matter of, well, this is my money and so I get to spend it how I want. That's just not how it works. Schools have to look at the entire picture and their limited amount of resources and make decisions as to what they think is best allocation for those resources. And that's why we have all these disputes. But using that argument for vouchers is just misguided. We're not a customer. The other thing is this, and this is the analogy that I give people when it comes to either vouchers or charters, because charters also take money away from public schools, as do vouchers. Because that's the thing. Like if you're going to give people vouchers, they're not going to add more money to the pot. If they're going to reimburse a charter school, they're going to take money out of that brick and mortar public and allocate it to the charter. They're not going to put more money in the pot. So here's the thing. I would say look at your household budget, right? And you know what it costs to run your household for a month or a year, right? Your rent, your mortgage, your food, your heat, your water, electricity. So you take that dollar figure and I say to you, okay, you know what? Now you have to run 2 households with that money. You're not getting any more money in the pot, but now you have to run 2 households because we don't think you're doing a good job and we want to give people more choices as to where to live. So your spouse is going to go live in a separate residence, but you're not getting any more money. Now you have to maintain 2 households with that same pot of money. And then we say, oh, you know what? We need even more choices. So we want to open another charter school. So now you have to run 3 households. Okay. And grandma's going to run that 3rd household. And we're going to see, because your kids still aren't happy. They want more choices. And so, because this is the argument, like, oh, well, the strongest will survive and the best school will rise to the top and the problem will work itself out. It won't, because that's setting everyone up for failure. Because again, like when you open a charter school or when you give someone a voucher and you say, well, why does it matter? Because we're not paying for like that kid isn't in that building anymore. So why does it matter? Well, it matters because schools can't just like, okay, if people go to a charter school and it reduces the class size from 28 to 26, like that's good for that teacher, but we're still paying that teacher's salary. We still have all the overhead costs for the school building. We still have all the costs of the bus, right? If there's 40 kids on the bus route now instead of 50, we're still paying that bus driver. We're still paying the bus, the gas, the bus company, whatever. Like there's no savings that can be had unless we start shuttering schools, which is becoming a problem, right? Because schools are having this money drained out of their budget. And in order to make up that difference, they're consolidating and making class sizes even bigger in other buildings and, busing kids across town and things like that because they have to close one building to reduce costs. So, the entire program is just set up to fail. If people want to open a charter school or do vouchers or whatever, like create an entire separate budget for it and fund it properly. I'm not sure why I have to support something. There's not a charter school in Pennsylvania that would take my kid. There just isn't. He's too old now, but I would have loved to have done an experiment at some point trying to enroll him in charter schools because their lotteries are fixed, and as soon as they find out you have an IEP, no, somehow your number never gets picked. If you get into the school and your child has an IEP and starts trending towards being higher needs, they bully you out of there, start treating you like crap. I've seen that one over and over. But they're publicly funded. These programs are publicly funded, but they don't take everyone in the public. Fundamentally, that is just wrong. Just wrong. We should be adding more money to public education. Oh, you just can't throw more money at a problem. Yeah, we're not throwing any money at the problem. Schools are doing more with less. They just are. Providing special education costs infinitely more than it did 10 or 20 years ago. Largely because of parents' advocacy. Largely because parents are more informed and they're asking for more and they know what works and we know what works. And more kids are getting, it doesn't feel like it, but more kids are getting more services. And we know that this is expensive. They're doing more with less. Class sizes are bigger. And vouchers and charters as they are designed today will not work. It will be all kids left behind because it just doesn't work. Vouchers do not create new private school enrollments because these programs are mostly not accessible. And charters perform terribly. Sure, they go, oh, but this one does really well. Look at this one in Philly. I'm not even going to say their name. Yes, I'm not saying they all suck every day, but by and large, when you look at the data of charters and especially the cyber charters, it's terrible. It is terrible. They do not perform as well. They just don't. That doesn't mean that there aren't some shining stars out there. Of course there are with everything. Well, but public education schools are just so terrible now these days. Yeah, they are. I'm an IEP advocate. Trust me, I see the worst of the worst when it comes to this stuff. But defunding the public schools is not the answer. It just isn't. And stop letting people convince you that it is. It's just not. Okay, that's enough for today. I am Lisa Lightner. Please check out my website, adayinourshoes.com. If you want to ask a question and get it answered by an advocate, you can go to forums.adayinourshoes.com and enjoy the rest of your day.